Well, good evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure to have so many of you here with us at the beautiful Lanesborough Health Club, Spa, wondrous place that this is. For those of you I've not met, I'm Francesca Oakeman-White, and I'm the founder of the Beauty Triangle. Now, we're here this evening to talk about how to heal. After all, I think we can all agree that there are times in life where we need a little support, which means something or maybe someone to help mend the parts of us that feel broken. But whether it's compromised skin, a worn-out immune system, or a persistently aching heart that ails us, where exactly do we turn? So when we set up the Beauty Triangle a number of years ago now, it was our intention initially to educate and empower our consumer audiences on all aspects of their health and well-being, and always from a holistic standpoint, which is why you'll always find 3 speakers on our events, each as an absolute authority in their chosen field. But we also set up the Beauty Triangle to connect you with the most trusted voices in wellness, whilst putting genuine information from genuine practitioners out there. Which leads me very neatly on to our amazing panellists. We're joined tonight by aesthetic doctor and founder of Atelier Clinic in Surrey, Dr. Aggie Zatonska. We're joined by medical director of Solace, longevity doctor, Dr. Tamsin Lewis, Dr. Tam Lewis. And finally, clinical reflexologist here at the Lanesborough Health Club and Spa, Ersilia Di Nitto. Di Nitto. I knew I was going to get someone's name wrong. Not enough practice on the names. I'm really there here to discuss proven routes to healing, whether that's skin regeneration, whether it's biohacking, or simply the power of human touch. So I'm going to hand over very shortly to our speakers. They're going to say a quick hello and just introduce themselves to you all. But before that, just a few little housekeeping things. I think you should all have a programme in your hands, hopefully, and also a referral card. So if you'd like us to connect you with anyone that you hear speak this evening, you just leave your email address, sort of tick the box next to their name, and we'll do all of the rest after this. We have an audience Q&A at the end, so any questions, just save them up until then and we'll come back to them. And we also have an amazing goodie bag, really generously sponsored by Human People, incredible supplement brand. We'll hear more about them later, I'm sure. But please don't go without taking one of those with you, because I'm taking them at the moment and I feel very supercharged, which is perfect for this event. But anyway, I'm going to pass over, starting with Dr. Aggie, and then we'll get cracking with the main conversation.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for having me. Such a pleasure, such a beautiful place. My name is Aggie Zatonska. I am a founder and medical director of Atelier Clinic in Surrey, where my whole passion focus is about holistic approach and keeping patients looking natural and just nurturing them through the aging process and controlling the things that are happening to us in the most natural way, true to our anatomy, true to who we are. So that's what I'm trying to do every day.
Amazing. Well, you're very good at it, and you're a very good poster girl for your natural yet polished approach. Thank you for being with us, Aggie. Dr. Tam.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Tam. Pleasure to meet you all. I am as you've already said, medical director of Solace Longevity, which is a medical concierge clinic with a focus on creating or co-creating health span. I am a medical doctor, former psychiatrist, and I retrained in functional integrated medicine. I'm also a former professional athlete, triathlete, and I learnt very early on about biohacking, because we were the original biohackers as athletes, because the small marginal gains really mattered. I also helped part of the founding team of Rose Bar at Six Senses in Ibiza, where we have Dr. Mark Hyman, some of you might know as our chief medical advisor. So I come and go between London and Ibiza quite a lot, and we run transformational retreats and programs there.
London to Ibiza is quite a nice lifestyle.
Quite nice commute.
Especially on a horrible day like today. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And finally, Ersilia.
Thank you, Francesca. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. I'm Ersilia Di Nitto. I'm a clinical reflexologist, and I'm based here at the Lanesborough Club and Spa as a clinical reflexologist. And I don't know if you know reflexology, and I hope that you'll find this evening conversation interesting and inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you, Ersilia. So everyone's introduced themselves, but I'll get started with the amazing Dr. Aggie, just to sort of set the scene. Aggie, I mean, you're very sought after for aesthetic procedures, skin optimization, and sort of everything that falls under that category. But more and more you're turning to the power of regenerative medicine. Why exactly is this, and why do you think patients are sort of following this more sort of healing approach?
What have changed recently is just the goals of the patients have changed. We are more thinking about skincare, skill wellness, and preserving the way we look and looking natural. So I no longer see a lot of patients coming to me to change something about themselves. I see patients that are worried that something has changed, that the time has changed something in their features, and they want to control this process. So they actually want to control the aging process in a way.
That seems like a positive movement.
It's a very positive movement. I couldn't be happier. You know, in the very beginning, 15 years ago, I was just trying to discourage patients from doing too much. I was aware of, you know, how those things will accumulate and how patients will look different, and they will end up looking different beyond their natural anatomy. So that was my number one worry. Now it is a little bit easier for me to, because the narrative has changed, but also we have so many more options.
I think that's the danger, isn't it? There's the narrative is overwhelmingly positive now, but actually there's still so much out there, and sometimes it's overwhelming. People just don't know which way to go.
Absolutely. So there's a lot more that goes into the realm of, you know, natural results and maintaining what we have, and rejuvenation and restoration, rather than you know, changing and volumizing. So that has changed massively lately.
Yeah, agreed. It's getting away from the augmentation and towards the regeneration, I suppose. What is exactly about regenerative medicine that is exciting you right now? Are there any new ingredients, formulations, products that you're working with?
There is a lot, and there is a whole plethora of, you know, options, and we always start from the consultation, obviously discussing, you know, the medical history and the indications and contraindication expectations, what the patients want to take it. So the basic hasn't changed, but we now have much more options, starting from, you know, the current buzzword polynucleotides, where, you know, actually patients start to recognize the name, and they...
Can you set the scene for us? What are polynucleotides?
So polynucleotides are actually fragments of highly purified fish DNA, and that's the active ingredient that starts to stimulate our own cells to produce not only more collagen and more elastin fibers, but also more hyaluronic acid. So it is hydrating, it's restorative, it does make the skin look few years younger, and that's, you know,
And this is the category that we refer to as biostimulators in injectables. And I suppose it's quite nice because it just feels like you're naturally igniting all of the healing mechanisms of the skin naturally to improve the quality.
Absolutely, and also we can do a little bit more with those treatments, because we can inject, we can actually improve skin in the areas that we couldn't really reach before with other products, because they were either volumizing or they were changing.
The under eyes are amazing, right?
But also the upper eyelid. I actually like both the
upper eyelid
and the
interesting.
and
and that's an area that so many people start to become concerned with over time. And it improves the skin laxity,
it improves
or the
skin
crepiness?
laxity, improves the hydration, the fine lines and wrinkles. Sometimes you can see patients who, you know, really takes care of their skin and use either, you know, different biostimulations, different like Profilo and other things, but couldn't really address this area. We couldn't get there with HA products, for example, without causing some swelling and some.
Well, I guess HA attracts the water. I mean, I've never had anything done around my eyes, but I had the polynucleotides under my eyes, and it really did smooth everything and sort of brighten everything and almost improve the skin quality quite dramatically.
Just that, right? Just that. So it doesn't change the shape of it, doesn't change, doesn't give you the puffiness. So that's the beauty of polynucleotides. But at the same time, we have, you know, the exosomes, and we
tell us about exosomes, because I don't know who here might be familiar with exosomes, but maybe you can again sort of give us an outline.
There is a lot of information out there. There are exosomes, and then are nanoparticles from plants. So the plant exosomes are actually plant-derived nanoparticles, not really exosomes. Exosomes are the particles that are derived from human and mammals, really.
Very interesting.
So that's the difference. But it's a very similar concept. The concept is biohacking again. So just if we think about those nanovesicles that are like envelopes that the cells use to communicate with each other, that's a natural process of stimulation between the cell and sending the signal between the cells. They were thought of waste product in the beginning, but now we understand that this is the way of communication between the cells. So we can actually, not we, but the scientists have hacked this process, and they can now pack those envelopes with active ingredients, those things that we want to send into the cells, with anti-inflammatory cytokines, with growth factors, with peptides, with amino acids, with all sorts of actives that we want to deliver to the cell and then send the signal to the cell to rejuvenate.
So this is more about skin health rather than altering how your face and your facial anatomy looks.
Yeah, so that's about, again, controlling the aging process, and also about actually putting all those, giving the cell all the building blocks that it needs to work better to do this.
And how exactly do you apply the exosomes? What does it look like for the patient?
Different ways depending on the product. I use plant exosomes, so they actually can be absorbed directly through the skin. You don't need to microneedle them, you don't need to inject them.
You apply it like a serum all over the face.
And we usually combine exosomes with different energy-based devices treatments or microneedling, so you're just creating the synergistic effect of all those treatments at the same time by putting all those active ingredients into the cells and signaling them to work harder.
Because if you layer it with another energy-based device or facial or whatever, that would drive them deeper into the skin somehow, or?
Not necessarily drives, because they actually penetrate deep enough, but it amplificates the reaction. So it gives you the synergistic effect of, we're stimulating something, we want to tighten the skin, or we want to improve for example, acne scarring with microneedling, by adding those active ingredients, by infusing the cells with those building blocks. We are making this process more efficient.
I love it. It's such a departure from when I first started working in aesthetics, and everything was about freezing and filling, and this is such a breath of fresh air, I think, in our
and
industry.
Statistically, we have evidence. We know that microneedling on its own versus microneedling with exosomes, that's 8-fold increase in elastin fibers, or threefold, so 300% increase in elastin in collagen, for example. So all of those things are measurable, and it works.
And I think even the healing process after a lot of the treatments you do when you use the exosomes, anecdotally I've heard, is far faster. Like the redness is really reduced, the skin sort of recovers faster.
Yes, it's anti-inflammatory. So even on its own, with gentle treatments for patients with rosacea, for example, it has a really amazing result.
That's really interesting. So we've spoken a lot about the face and the skin, but there are also some really interesting devices nowadays that really repair and rebuild the body. Are you integrating these? Are you finding that that's really ticking a box for a lot of the patients that you see today?
Yes, because when we start to think holistically about all those treatments, then patients actually start to open up and tell us about other things that they are bothered with, and we have now this amazing technology like EM Sculpt Neo, which combines the high-FEM technology, the high-intensity focal electromagnetic energy, plus radio frequency to tighten the muscle, to improve the muscle mass, to tighten the skin, and to reduce some of the unwanted fat, for example, all in one. So that's amazing.
It's a much more, again, positive departure away from the fat freezing and the trying to lose fat and bulk in the body, and actually sort of moving towards a place where we're strengthening it and building muscle.
We're talking more about posture, about prevention, postpartum, patients that had children, with diastasis recti, or with just weak muscles. But the same for emcellature. We've just recently added emcellature for pelvic floor muscles. Called core to floor, as we call it, the whole kind of, again, the holistic approach. Why just do it here if, a lot of our patients then in their life, especially when they have children, they will suffer from some form of incontinence and weak floor muscles, pelvic floor muscles. So that is 11,000 Kegel exercises in 20 7 minutes, so that
fact always blows my mind.
Life is busy at the moment. I
don't think I even did 11 Kegels when I was pregnant. 11,000 in,
it takes
20 minutes?
28 minutes.
That's kind of amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's quite something, can I just say?
Yeah,
I've done
yeah.
it. It's like an electric shock. You sit on this like saddle-like thing.
It's a funny
It's very
sensation.
pleasant, actually. Some patients find it very pleasant.
Okay, sorry, I'm not going to sell it though. It felt like some electric shocks going.
I totally agree, and it's very nice at your clinic. I've seen it. It's actually in a room that's very private. I do think you, as much as they say you don't take your clothes off, it's very easy. You still want to be behind a screen because it is still some quite intense contractions going on in the nether regions.
But it can be also used for male patients, not just necessarily female patients.
And do you have male patients coming in for it?
We have our patients bringing their husbands.
Yeah, the word got out.
Yeah, exactly. It's so interesting. Do you often find that it's the female patients bringing the sort of other parts, other halves along to sort of trial
they
these
learn,
things?
they just do the legwork, they test it, and then they learn the fact. They say, oh, actually, it says.
Oh, my husband's been on the M-Sculpt, so he'll hate me for saying this whilst we're videoing it. Not the M-Seller, but the M-Sculpt Neo. Because also for men, sometimes they find it very hard to build muscle in certain areas, right? I'm sure Tammy will know this as an athlete. Like for men, sometimes the arms and the legs and the M-Sculpt, I think it has all sorts of paddles for different areas of the body.
Exactly. I work a lot with golfers because, I also consult in Wentworth Golf Club, and this posture, it makes such a difference to just have the stronger core for people who play golf.
And I think as soon as you address the core and you strengthen that, they say the back pain is almost eliminated as well.
You can really improve the sciatica, especially when we target the glutes and the core at the same time. So that makes a big difference.
It's so fascinating how you're really looking at the body as sort of one entity now, which I think is probably so different to when you first started working.
But it's I think we recognize that, especially now that people over the pandemic worked from home and were sitting in front of the computers for hours on end, it have impact, and obviously not going to the gym regularly, etc. It impact the core muscles. They the whole problem with then back pains, etc. started for many during that time. So
it's true.
That that was a solution.
And we're also familiar with technology as well. I mean, we have mobile phones surgically attached to our hands. Like it makes no sort of surprise actually, in a way that we are using technology now to amplify these things that we would otherwise be sweating out in a gym for hours on end to do. Final question, what about at home? Is there anything that you advocate, that you recommend to your patients that they do to help heal the skin and the body, either sort of pre or post the procedures that you offer?
So the main thing obviously is skincare, and we always start from that. It is important to do proper skin analysis to actually check what's lurking below the surface, what we are prone to, how can we prevent. So we use the skin analysis device, again, another tech gadget that is really, really amazing.
And terrifying when you see what's going on under there.
But then you can see the progress, so actually there is a positive twist to it.
Celebrate the results once you've had all your exosomes needed in.
Exactly. So that does help to set patients on the right path of what to use. A lot of my patients actually use too many products, and the products that are not beneficial for their skin. So we kind of go back to square one and tidy this up. Then the supplements. Oh my goodness! I've discovered NMN, and Dr. Jeff Mulan is here with us, so he can answer your questions later. But this was something that I was looking into, going back to biohacking and how we can optimize our health. I was looking for something for my long COVID patients who were coming back to the clinic, wanting to have the treatments and actually not feeling great. So I didn't feel like starting injectables with those patients is the right thing to do. I just needed to make sure that they are, empowered and they feel well enough to have all of those treatments. So that's when I heard about NAD, and then we obviously know that the best version of the NAD booster is NMN actually. So this is the active ingredient, and we can orally absorb. And I was trying a few different companies, looking for the one that would be the most effective. And a lot of companies put other stuff, bulking agents,
exactly.
caffeine, and a little bit cheating here and there.
Yeah, but it's pure NMN.
This is pure
I read
NMN.
the ingredients. It's 100% NMN.
It's
and
99.9%. I think it's just the shell that it isn't. And so this is amazing active ingredient that is not really specific to aesthetic medicine in any way or form, but that is something that helps us to increase the ATP, so to fuel the mitochondria for the cell to work better. So it increases, helps patients with brain fog, perimenopausal, menopausal, long COVID patients actually find that they have increased cognitive function after that. It does make people feel a little bit more energized, and that's the feedback that my patients tell me, that they feel a little bit stronger. It helps to improve, and that's what I was trying to find for my COVID patients. Improves the immune response, so the immune system works better, but also it controls the muscle wastage as well, going back to all the devices, thinking, how I can improve the effects of my patients who are going through the EM Sculpt Neo treatments, for example. If I combine it with a supplement like this, they actually increase the muscle mass.
That's fantastic.
Just optimizing those effects for them. So it is absolutely fascinating, and I take it myself, and I do.
And look at you, the picture of health.
Well,
you actually are. But I think it's so nice that everyone is taking such a 360-degree approach now to their patient. I mean, obviously your specialism is the skin optimization, the injectables, all of these wonderful energy-based devices. But if you have a patient in front of you, like you say, and they're not yet ready to do that and go on that journey, then I think it's nice to address their baseline health and get them in the right space.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you. That was fascinating, and it was such a treat to have you here, and a really, really nice segue into Dr. Tam as well, who is just the all-time authority, I think, on all things longevity and obviously health spans. So a really nice follow-on from NAD and exosomes and everything that we discussed. Welcome, Dr. Tam. Thank you for being here.
Also struggled through long COVID, so know a lot about long COVID.
You did personally?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, goodness.
So it made me a more empathetic doctor, I think, having struggled with all the
Which
symptoms.
is always important in a doctor,
Oh, yeah, you've got to live through these things as well.
Yeah, I agree. It gives you a way to connect with the patient as well, which I think is sometimes missing sort of in very medical sort of sharp end of science sort of worlds. But tell us a little bit about what you're seeing today, because you've been in the biohacking space for over 15 years, am I right?
Well, it's sort of, I don't think it's even termed it back then.
Yeah,
but,
it's true.
all of the things that we did thinking about M-Sculpt and procedures like that, we used to use Compex on aeroplanes, which is these muscle stimulators just to prevent muscle soreness and keep blood flow going.
Yeah, exactly. That's so cool.
We used to have active vegan injections, which actually contain exosomes. It's calf blood plasma, because it increased your aerobic capacity.
Oh my God, you must see so much now coming to market, and you're like, did that 10 years ago.
Lymphatic drainage boots we were doing.
I love those. Those are fantastic.
Hyperbaric oxygen therapy, all of that.
Yeah.
So,
God, I need to pick your brains about everything. But what are the concerns that patients are coming to you with on the day-to-day? How do they find their way to your door?
Usually word of mouth, although I've been doing a lot more speaking and podcasts more recently, and through the work with Six Senses Ibiza and the festivals that we have there, people have got to know more about me and this sort of holistic integrated approach. But it's usually, people have recommended through a friend of a friend. So, I mean, my training is very varied. I have a range over psychiatry, hormonal health. I trained originally with Dr. Marion Gluck, who set up the first original bioidentical hormone clinic back in 2014. I also worked with Dr. Jack Kreinler in Centre for Health and Human Performance, so early on in the performance medicine realm. Having had my own experience of depression, anxiety when I was growing up and suffered a traumatic brain injury, sort of overcome quite a bit, and you figure out a way to what works and what doesn't, and you try and error a lot of things, and you also spend a lot of time researching because it matters to you, so you ask the experts. So I have Yeah, so I straddle a lot of realms, but then I work with different specialists to support people on a health journey. But it can be anything from perimenopause, fatigue, brain fog, long COVID. I see a lot of men who have borderline mental health problems, so depression, anxiety, sort of middle life, I don't want to say midlife crisis, but midlife dysfunction.
It's interesting that you say men, women as well, or?
I started off by saying I'm speaking too fast. The perimenopause,
Oh, sorry.
menopause,
So, yeah, exactly.
but also I think
But
my
on-
history as an athlete draws guys in because they feel that I can, understand the
Yeah,
world
exactly.
of performance.
Yeah.
And in terms of hormonal responses, testosterone replacement therapy, I'm trained in all of that. So
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the things that patients are presenting with now are different to when you first started out in this field? Like, the world must be, it's obviously moved on ever since you sort of trained, I'm sure. So is that reflected in the conditions that people are coming to see you with?
I think people are more health literate, aren't they? But with that can come more sort of hypochondria and anxiety, which no doubt compounds everything. And I think people often come to me now and having tried a lot of things.
Yeah, exactly.
They've often tried 5,000 different supplements, but they're often not at the right dose, taken at the right time. It's the same with hormones. I meet people who are on HRT who are taking their testosterone, even women, at night, and testosterone is a stimulating hormone. If you take it at night, it's obviously going to impact sleep, but they're not told that information. So yeah, the health literacy is interesting. People are more aware of the link between their physical symptoms, so their gut health, their bloating, their changes in bowel habit, for example, and their mental health.
That's so true.
Yeah, they're more aware of different foods that are upsetting their system and how that can affect their mood.
And even like how they sort of want to engage with the world around them as well.
Absolutely.
Sometimes when we're sort of going through all these internal physical sort of battles, then it sort of impacts on you wanting to get out there and be in the world, and your emotional health, to your sort of earlier point.
Yeah, so I think having trained as a psychiatrist, I have a brain-based approach often. So I'm sort of slowly poke at the sort of root cause of why people are feeling the way they're feeling. And it is cause and consequence, right? If you're low in mood, you tend to crave different foods, and then that makes you gain weight, and then you feel your self-esteem goes down, then you don't go out. So it's like this vicious circle. And
It's so true.
Unpicking it, and I work with a couple of health coaches who just act as an accountability, a sort of support network, and community too. Community, having friends that can support you. So I think that I've always said that, and that's why I trained in hormones after psychiatry, is that if you change the lens to your world, and hormones are super powerful, anyone going through perimenopause will tell you that, once you give a bit of estrogen, right dose, literally the way you see the world changes. And that then has the downstream effect of changing the way you interact with people, and then that changes your mood, and it changes the way you exercise. And with exercise, you stimulate the muscle. If you have more muscle, you burn more. You sink glucose and you burn fat better. So it's this. So I always do start off with the brain and look at why people's mood or energy isn't working the way it could do. And change that lens, whether it's hormones, supplements, getting people to sleep better, getting people to laugh more, getting people to exercise differently, looking at their relationships, looking at their friendship circles, looking at
it goes so deep. I mean, that initial consultation must be really important. It must involve a lot of like soul searching and sort of honesty, I suppose, from the patient in front of you as well.
Yeah, absolutely, which is why I don't really like doing Zooms, although it's a much more, a profitable business model to sit and do Zooms all day. I would much rather go out there and get people and meet them where they're at and see them and notice the small glint in the eye or subtle differences.
Yeah, that's a really nice way of putting it. And it sounds like it's a very sort of stacked, layered approach. There's no sort of one single thing that is ever prescribed. It's sort of a stage staggered, lots of little changes probably incrementally along the way happening.
Yes, but I've always been interested in a data-focused approach and trained in various sort of health tech modules in the past, so I can sort of look at ways at different sort of data sources, looking at hormone testing, deep blood testing, body composition analysis, wearable data like the Oura Ring, which tracks your sleep, your body temperature, your heart rate, your stress.
It's amazing that we have this insight now into our body with this wearable tech as well. That must have really accelerated the work that you do with patients.
What it has allowed me to do is have a longitudinal data set as opposed to a snapshot. So, you know, you go to your doctor, or we do now, and you maybe go once a year and they're like, we're not anemic, your thyroid's okay, your liver's okay. But, you know, devices like this, and they are getting more sophisticated, you know, well, they'll be able to read your blood sugar level without any time, you know, just a ring on your finger, is allowing you to see not just that day, but, you know, over the course of months, the different patterns in your sleep, your stress, whether you're exercising, it tells you whether you're getting sick, it nudges you, it says, look, your heart rate, your body temperature's up, this could be COVID, it could be something else, take it easy. So it's an objective lens, which some people can get over obsessed with. So I don't overuse wearable technology, I use it as a learning, so like a training system, like continuous glucose monitors and this, and I tell people, you know, learn about yourself, but then, you know,
exactly, the knowledge is power, and I suppose that means that as soon as you almost get to know your own unique blueprint as such, and you know your triggers, and you know certain stages and times in the sort of month, or you know, when things might be out of kilter, that you can actually then change things and sort of modify and do things to make you feel stronger and sort of more resilient. What does healing look like in the work that you do? So you have this very deep-rooted diagnostic approach and you do all the testing, but how do you actually sort of help your clients to achieve that peak performance that maybe they've lost?
I used to work with peak performance. Now I tend to look at sort of human flourishing and just well-being, and like just that sense of how do I get patients, people, clients to a state of ease, to being at ease, because a lot of us exist in this state of running from one thing to the next and dysfunction and being slightly uncomfortable or nervous or whatever. So I think, you know, it's having someone that you can trust, to have that doctor-patient relationship. But I don't work alone. I work with a network of practitioners, a few of whom are sitting back in the audience today, who basically look at you know, that old school doctor-patient relationship that used to exist, where they really get to know you and your quirks, and you can be open in the conversation at different times in your life and saying, this is not working, and sometimes it's just a case of sitting in the mud with them and saying that, you know, that sucks, I'm so sorry to hear that. Here are the actionable things that we could do today. It could be getting morning light, it could be you don't have to go to the gym, just go for a walk along the river, turn your phone off, call a friend. It's like, it's small things.
It's changing your narrative. I love so much of the language that you use. What was it you said about flourishing, human flourishing? But it's so beautiful. And I think it really resonates with humans. You mentioned, for example, going for a walk along the river, and I think we know so much more about the power of the outside world when it comes to human healing as well. So do you see anecdotally, is there data to support that? Like, is that something that you advocate to your clients as well? Get out there, be in nature, embrace the outside world. Is that beneficial?
Absolutely. I think I have a very nature-based focus in my work, and I think it helps that when we run retreats, and we run different retreats around the world, but it is mostly about getting out, natural light, daylight, community, friendships, getting in water, you know, like sea or lakes, you know. I'd much prefer that than people go and spend 150 quid on a cryo, for example. I
suppose it's the everyday things that are accessible to people as well. So it's not just this one splurge that, £150 on 3 minutes of cryotherapy, but something you're building into your everyday existence.
And it's having that conversation with people, because people do look for quick fixes. They think if they do a cryo once every few weeks, they're, you know, going to be having something that's going to give them an up level. But it is actually, as you say, the incremental things you do day to day that make a difference. It's you know, it could be intermittent fasting, it could be delaying caffeine, it's doing some strength exercise, which could be just, you know, not using the handrails and taking stairs 2 at a time. It's incorporating things into your day. And
they all build up, and actually the bigger picture at the end is so much richer than that 3 minutes in the chamber in the cryo.
Absolutely. And but you know, cold showers, cold baths, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Don't have to spend
$150 on it. I have to say, some of the most powerful methods of healing that I've introduced people to have been breath work, holotropic breath work. So
what's holotropic breath
work? So it's more I guess it's got that term, but it's more transformational breath work. So it's guided, deep and powerful breathing in an environment with other people, but with music. And what that does is shift your brain biochemistry quite significantly, and they've shown this now in MRI scans. So you actually release different chemicals in your brain, and some people go on almost like a psychedelic journey. They see things in their life that had happened, they have emotional releases.
Wow.
This whole concept that we store memories and store trauma, that word is used too blatantly at the moment, but we store memories and distress in ourselves. That used to be anathema to us as medics. We used to think that was nonsense. You know, I studied biology of aging and neuroscience at King's, and that was never a thing. But now we know, and I've experienced that time and time again with patients and personally, that if you are given the right circumstances, that you can release that. And that has a downstream biological effect, whereby, you know, you're talking about regeneration, you're talking about enhanced sleep, you're talking about improved emotional health. That release that those kind of methodologies can have are really powerful.
And again, I think it goes back to doing something that is accessible to you every day and it's free. I mean, breath work, well, actually the term that you just mentioned, the holotropic.
Well, there is an app.
Can you? Yeah. Oh, okay. So exactly, you can follow an app. You don't have to be guided necessarily by a practitioner in it, albeit you can do it on your phone at home and make it a part of your everyday lifestyle.
You can, although I do encourage people, especially if they're new to it, and people will go deeper on a journey if they are supported by a practitioner.
Yeah.
And there are many group sessions around London, breathwork practitioners that you can check in and have sort of a joint emotional experience, which is ultimately beneficial.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And science is catching up with this now. We can measure the effects. It's very tangible.
I've hosted so many of these talks, and at every single one I learned something new, and that is really, really fascinating. I need to investigate that a little further. And sort of final question, because there are so many trends and sort of buzzwords in healthcare at the moment, is there anything genuinely new that you're seeing, or anything that, as somebody in your position, you're actually excited about and you think is going to be the next big thing in longevity?
I think we are going to become increasingly more personalised as the cost of tests and AI and the reliability of AI and algorithms to sort of give you a blueprint. We talked about a blueprint, but you know the doctor's eye will be sort of, you know, more focused, given that AI is going to become more powerful. So we will be able to, you know, what do you need 500 milligrams of NMN? Maybe I need a gram. You know, I think we're going to be getting to that stage in the future where we will be, you know, peeing on a strip of paper that links to your iPhone and uploads it to a cloud, and you're like, you know, you need a bit more of that food today, a bit of that supplement, because we shouldn't be taking the same thing every day, in and out. No one's ever studied that, and maybe we don't need that. What I need today is not what I need tomorrow. We are dynamic beings, and we interact with our environment on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour, minute-to-minute basis. So I think we're going to be increasingly able to monitor that dynamic and sort of nudge to make different changes throughout our life. So that's one thing I'm interested by. Also the use of what we call senolytics, which are essentially medications and supplements at the right dose, which can help clear out dead stuff. We have these things called zombie cells, which as we age, they sort of accumulate and cause destruction in our body, which ends up being, you know, crinkly skin and, you know, just crinkly skin and achy hips and dodgy knees. All of those are, you know, indirectly
everything that ages us, essentially.
You know, we accumulate cell damage. So I'm interested by these medications which are now, and procedures, which are even fasting can stimulate.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking when you said the sort of clearing out the dead cells, because that's, you know, the sort of principles behind intermittent fasting, essentially, isn't it? Sort of clearing out the dead cells, or are these slightly different cells, the zombie cells?
They're slightly different, but the process of clearing out is called autophagy, and that's sort of that can be triggered by episodes of fasting. Although fasting has, you know, we're not designed to consistently fast, so I think people can overdo it. Although I think in this day and age, I think fasting can be very powerful if done right, and you know, people don't go on dry or water fast excessively, I think.
Yeah. What's the optimal window when you do an intermittent fast? Like, what would you prescribe, or is it very much, again, down to the individual and what suits them and their lifestyle?
Yeah, and their metabolic health. You know, some people are not what we call fat adapted. They can't burn fat, so, you know, they are reliant on their carbohydrate stores. So you have to sort of taper in slowly, because we only have 1,800 calories, if not less, of carbohydrate stores. So the better you become at fat burning, the better, because we have thousands of calories of fat on us, even the slimmest people. So the better you become at fat burning, and that's metabolic fitness. That's that's what we call zone 2 exercise training, which is that type of exercise where you look just about out of breath, but you can hold a conversation. So a bit more of that makes your metabolic engine a bit better. So
I guess it all circles back to knowing your body and what makes you tick.
Just push it out. If you do 12 hours overnight easy, then you push it out to 14 and 16. Some people are breakfast people, some people are dinner people. When do you like to eat? When are you hungry? Notice your hunger.
I could never not eat dinner. I can skip breakfast super easily.
There you go. But some people are different. So it's just noticing that, noticing and also your demands on your physiology. If you're going out for a hard day and you've got to be cognitively on it, some people won't do well if they're hungry or hypoglycemic, borderline low sugar half the day.
That's a good point. I could sit and talk to you for hours and hours, but and I'm sure everyone will have a lot of questions for you, but we'll do the Q&A at the end and come back to those. Thank you so much. That was absolutely riveting, and really, really super interesting. Thank you, Dr. Tam. So our final speaker is the wonderful Ersilia. She's clinical reflexologist here at the Lanesborough. I don't think you mentioned this in your introduction, but you are a specialist in facial, auricular, so the ears, hand and foot reflexology, which is super interesting. But maybe you could just explain a little bit about the patients that you see and how you help them. What are the things that you can actually address through the power of reflexology?
As an holistic therapist, I'm a facilitator. Many of my clients use reflexology as a way to help them to manage stress, anxiety, fertility issues, chemotherapy, side effects, insomnia. So the list goes on and on. Digestive problems, the most common ones are, for example, IBS or constipation, back pain, body tension, fatigue. So really, they're all different, and so I don't know if you know reflexology, but most of the time, unfortunately, is associated with feet only. And when I tell people, oh yeah, I'm a reflexologist, and they say, oh yeah, I love foot massage, I feel like,
You've missed the point.
Take a deep breath. So, all right. So it's not, let's debunk this myth. It's not foot massage, and actually defining reflexology as a form of massage is wrong. Because in reflexology we follow maps, and we consider not only our feet but also our hands, our ears and our face as microsystems. And so by applying specific techniques and specific pressure or soothing techniques, we are working on specific part of our bodies, and so each part represents and mirrors specific glands and organs and systems. It's an holistic therapy. It's very ancient, and it's incredibly powerful because we do not work only on the body, but we take into account all the elements that define the client. So of course I take into account the presenting symptoms, but alongside the presenting symptoms I take into account the client's lifestyle, the client's emotional state, mental attitudes.
So like Dr. Tam and Dr. Aggie, you have to, again, have a very investigative approach when it comes to that consultation to really understand what is going on with the client who's sat in front of you.
Right, because the problem is that especially nowadays, and we live in a wonderful city, but we cannot, we have to be honest, these rhythms are so frenetic, and we are so immersed in this frenetic rhythms that we almost get used to this, to feeling unwell, and we realize that we are stressed only when we are at the breaking point. So thankfully, here comes reflexology. We can restore, so reflexology aims to restore a state of balance on, not only
physical, but also emotional.
Yes, but emotionally, mentally and spiritually. So yes.
And how do you know which area you're going to focus on? Or would a reflexology treatment with you move from the face to the ears to the hands to the feet? Or do you use different parts of the body to address certain conditions or concerns of the patient?
To me it is paramount starting the treatment with a conversation, with a consultation. So just to build a picture and to have an idea about the general health of the client. And then normally I perform an investigatory treatment. I do prefer doing it on the feet, simply because the feet tell us the most, and I can use deeper techniques. So
why do the feet tell you more, out of interest? Are there more points on the feet?
It's not about the points actually, because if you consider that our ears have more than 200 points,
Goodness.
But yeah, definitely, the face is more delicate than the feet, and so yeah, my partner can, is a testimonial, and there are certain techniques that really can be sometimes unpleasant.
Do you use just your hands? Because I've sometimes seen people use a little tool as well, which looks a bit vicious.
Yeah, I do practice Western reflexology, so my main tools are my hands. So Western reflexology differs greatly from Eastern reflexology, where tools and stones and knuckling and stronger techniques are used. So in that case, the treatments are shorter because they are more intense, whilst my main tools are my hands, but I like to use also, whenever I perform facial reflexology, crystal wands, or when I practice hair reflexology, I do use ear seeds.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, so...
And you can leave those in sometimes afterwards as well for the clients, so they go home and the effects last.
Yeah, but that is just the cherry on top.
Yeah.
So it's not... At least myself, I do like to end the treatment with those. And
yeah, that's nice. And what are the key points that you often find really sort of compromised in patients nowadays? Is there one area of the body, one system, one organ that all of us are really struggling with?
Well, anyone is different, and we're all wonderfully unique, and based on our background and our education and the way we react to life events. So stress can manifest differently for everyone. So, for example, myself, I tend to hold my stress in my trapezius and cervical area. So in that case, you could find on the trapezius reflex a bit of tension, but there are clients, for example, who struggles with digestive issues or insomnia. So in that case, you can see, you can get a feedback from the body.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, of which area is working well and which part of the body instead will require a bit more of care and attention.
I mean, you mentioned that we're all living in this very frenetic world and we're stressed and we're running around. Do you find that sort of adrenal fatigue is something that comes up
Absolutely.
a lot with patients?
Absolutely, because we are constantly in this fight or flight mode without even realizing. And so our adrenal glands release the stress hormone, the cortisol. And so in that case, I can experience with clients, we call that those markers.
Yeah.
So
I've heard people say deposits as well. It's almost like you feel something under the skin with reflexology.
You can feel definitely something. In that case, we go with soothing techniques. So especially on the adrenal glands, and also the diaphragm reflex that is often compromised. So this is this wonderful muscles above our rib cage, and when we are not able to breathe properly, so whilst working the diaphragm, I can then see the clients finally relax, and you can see the colour come back to their face. Right.
Do you find a lot of patients at the end of the reflexology session with you are just fascinated to know what's going on? Because I know when I've had reflexology, you do it and then at the end you're like, tell me everything about my body, because it's almost like you uncover all of these things, and then suddenly somebody says, yes, your kidneys are terrible, are you drinking enough water? Or, like, do you get a lot of that?
Yes, they're very curious, and sometimes I feel embarrassed because you have to be extra careful and delicate, and I'm not MRI machine, so of course it's about also my intuition and the touch, and they're very curious, and it's fascinating, but it's not about what I tell to the client, but what that may mean for the client.
Yeah.
So for example, their reaction whilst, for example, I'm working a certain reflex. So I'm working, the brain maybe in a client who came to me to help them with migraines, or who has a nervous system issue. So in that case, it's so fascinating that they feel sensation, and I get feedback just right. I'm working that particular reflex. So
I mean, the sense of touch for human beings is so powerful, and I think everything that you're doing sort of harks back to that.
This is music for my ears, and I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because it's not a woo-woo thing. So it's real. The touch is so connected to our instinct as animals. It's a primary language. We live in our body. So of course, as humans, we need to touch, and we need to be touched. And we have two wonderful experts here, and so how important is our skin, is our largest organ, and it represents about the 20% of our body. So there are so many nerve endings, and absolutely, when it comes to healing, touch, absolutely, it plays a huge role.
And I think we certainly saw that in COVID, didn't we? A lot of people who were isolated, who didn't have those normal human connections that maybe they would have had otherwise in life, and a lot of people were just so starved and deprived of human contact. And I think you've all touched on COVID, sort of funnily enough, in a way tonight, and that's not at all what this talk is about, but I think it really goes to show that there are moments in time with humans where we are really under duress and a lot of stress, and these are the things that are actually really important to us.
Absolutely, and then there is a large body of scientific research which says that actually touch is very, very powerful for our immune system as well, and to help to release endorphins, which are our happy hormones, so our natural painkillers, and so absolutely.
It's a lovely way to heal. Thank you, Ersilia. That was also completely riveting and fascinating as well.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed having you here tonight. That brings tonight's panel discussion to a close. But yeah, I found it so enlightening listening to all of you, all so smart and articulate. I think you've got very different approaches to healing, but it just goes to show I don't think there's one single silver bullet that is going to heal us all, although probably in some ways we all need a little bit of healing in one way or another. But I think it was Dr. Tam who mentioned this, like the importance of having your support network, whether that's friends and family to lean on or whether it's professionals who can actually guide you through this. I think that's how we're going to build strength and resilience and ultimately weather life's storms. We have time for some audience questions. It's a good opportunity if anyone does need to scoot, probably to scoot on out, and please don't forget your goodie bag and leave your referral cards with us. But if you'd like to stay, and we've got time for questions, so do pop your hand up if you have anything that you would like to ask. And no hands yet, interesting. We must have covered absolutely everything. And if not, we will all be around and our speakers will be around for any further questions and queries. One question, wonderful.
I was thinking about the breathwork resources, and I was wondering if there's anything you'd recommend specifically.
There's an app, there's many apps now, but the one that's a bit more experiential and I think it's quite beautiful is called The Other Ship.
Yeah, great.
I don't know if you've seen that, but it's,
The Other Ship?
Yeah, I think they have a real range of, not instead of mothership, it's just other ship.
Oh yes, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you explained that to me. I was like, cool, The Other
Well,
Ship.
you might remember it. If we create associations in our brain, we're more likely to remember
so true.
something.
Good point.
So I think they've got a real range, and I use it most nights to go to sleep and also to wake up, do different breath techniques. So you become a lot more in tune with your breath, because a lot of the time we just assume that we're breathing because it's automatic, but the breath is powerful, oxygen is powerful.
I might, I do the Calm app every night before bed. I might have a look at The Other Ship instead. I love a bedtime story at the moment.
It's a bit boring, but Harry Styles has put many people to bed. I think.
Oh my god, that's hilarious. It must be their bestseller.
It really is.
Please ask Dr. Mulan to explain what are the contents of the goodie bag.
Yes, and Dr. Jeff, who is our wonderful doctor, who is the brains behind Human People, is going to be put on the spot now, and it wasn't me, it was Dr. Aggie who asked, but Dr. Jeff, would you mind explaining what is in the supplements that are in the goodie bags for everyone to take away? Sorry.
So there was NMN, which you talked about earlier, and there's a little sample of something called lifeline, which is also an interesting supplement which has been researched actually on skin and senescence, which Tam was talking about earlier, and fibroblasts. But in particular, in muscle wastage and sarcopenia, improving energy in muscles and building up muscle. The other one is a sample of something called spermidine, which is a supplement which does a little bit what intermittent fasting does. It kicks in some of the autophagy processes as well. So
fascinating. We're going to be completely bulletproof after taking that lot.
It's all fascinating, and there's more information on the website Human People, so have a look there.
Yeah, it's amazing. This lady here, I know.
I had a question for Dr. Tam. Say, I think I just listened to your podcast with Davinia.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I didn't put the two and two together, and then I was like, oh my god, it was just
She's
yesterday
everywhere.
I was listening to.
I'm actually going to see her now. She's doing an event, Davinia Taylor, she's doing an event at One Malabarine right now.
Oh wow, we're all coming.
Exactly. Can you add 35 to your guest list? Yeah, exactly.
Fascinating what you said on the podcast, and fascinating what you said just now. So again, wanted to talk about the breath work. So one thing I've been quite interested in recently is like somatic therapy. Whether that's something that would this be similar, or is that something that you?
I do employ somatic therapy because it's really good for the nervous system. We all have our dysfunctions, like I talked about, the carrying trauma in ourselves, carrying disease in ourselves, and I think somatic work with the right practitioner is essentially can be breath work with hands on different points of your body to release tension, stored memories, etc. But always under the hands of a practitioner. There's a whole body of work around somatic experiencing, which is the work of Peter Levine, and Gabor Mate, who you probably might have heard of as well, who talks a lot about the body keeping the score. That's the principle of that work as well. It's being guided by a safe and competent expert to release trauma from the body under the influence of breath and nervous system work. I'm just going to mention Boniface is sitting at the back because I work a lot with him on somatic. He does somatic work. He's an osteopath, a body psychologist, acupuncturist, and he's worked with a number of my clients successfully doing somatic healing nervous system work.
And that's London-based, or?
We worked together in Ibiza, that's how we met.
Got to go to Ibiza,
Exactly.
Sorry.
No, now we both also moved back here independently, yeah. So he is in London. Go and say hello. Yes.
It's so powerful when practitioners deploy the services of other people as well and really create that support network for their patients.
Yeah.
I
actually
really
think
valuable.
this is the new pillar of health. I think emotional health in driving longevity has been underestimated, and I think this is where the future is. And I think having a compassionate circle or environment in order to, just derobe or, get rid of all our stored levels of, I don't want to say crap because everything has a meaning, but we carry a lot of it. Like we think but it's not. It's still there. And
And do you believe that, let's say, a sporting injury could be a result of something that you're holding on to from? Or do you think it's something it just happens and that's
obviously some things just happen, but if our nervous systems aren't dysregulated, then our immune systems can be dysregulated. We can become inflamed. If we have systemic inflammation, we're more likely to be injured. Also, traumatic experience can change the way we hold our bodies, which can change the functioning of them, which changes the way we interact with sport. So everything's interrelated, right? So it's just being able to, and that's what working with Boniface will look at you and it'll be like, you can feel that. Some things are coincidences, but everything is connected in my experience.
This lady back here. Yes.
Hi, my name is Melis, I'm a GP. Hi. So going back to the breath work situation.
Yeah.
Hot topic. Yeah, exactly. You need to lead us in some
I think
breaths.
it's really interesting because I find that in my day-to-day work or just things happening in life, I tend to hold my breath. And then I notice it because I'm out of breath because I'm trying to catch up. So in that moment, I'm trying to regulate my breathing again. But is there something that you might be able to recommend where I can get it back to normal? Or is it more of a cognitive thing where I would have to change my thinking process in relation to that day-to-day problem that I'm dealing with? Or is it more to do with, I can feel my body is changing and my breath has changed, and should I just slow down for a second in order to regulate this? Like what can I do in that moment?
That's an interesting one. I mean, there's a few things to pick up on. One, you're now aware of it and you can pick yourself up. Some people just never become aware and then they're like, they don't know what to do about it. It also, the fact that you're focusing so hard, the sympathetic nervous system goes higher because you need adrenaline. Like adrenaline enhances focus. Like people on this stage will have higher adrenaline levels because we need to focus and that switches your brain on. So part of that is normal, but you don't obviously want to stay in that state of tension repeatedly because we weren't designed to do that. As you know, with acute stress, it's meant to be acute stress. There are devices now that, I'm trying to remember the name, but you literally just stick it on your belt. Bonnie, do you know? And it sort of taps you if it feels that you're not expanding your chest. It sort of taps you to expand your breath. So breath training. It was called like the stone or something like that. There was, but there are breathing training devices for sure. But also something that you might just want to engage with that Andrew Huberman, who's literally one of the most famous podcasts now, has, we're all sort of citizen scientists now, has something called the physiological sigh. So when you do feel yourself in that state of tension, you might just want to literally just take another deep breath, like, and then like, 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And that is triggering your vagus nerve to then kick off and slow your heart rate down and relax your muscles. So that is
I
powerful.
tend to do that. It's just, it happens so frequently that I think, why is my fight or flight system being triggered all the time? I don't know if it's related to obviously being a doctor.
I think it's
the
that.
stress of that. I don't know.
It's the demands on you, right? You're like, you've got your 7, I'm not speaking of term, but you know, if it's 7 minutes, and it's no wonder your adrenaline's going, right? And that's a natural response of adrenaline and cortisol in the body to get you to, you know, sharpen up, quicken up. So part of that is just, natural, but you know, you have to look after yourself, because as I learned the hard way, once you get over 35, the body's not as forgiving if you don't check into self-care activities.
Thank you. What's the name of the doctor? Andrew?
Huberman, Huberman.
Was there another question in the front row? This lady here, yes.
Dr. Tam, I wanted to just ask, if you don't mind, with your journey with long COVID, is obviously a holistic view of like what's helped you, different, obviously focusing on your nutrition, exercise and all that, but has, you also said you did some hyperbaric chamber. Has that helped with like the inflammatory response and like your compromised immune system? Do you recommend, obviously because there's just so much out there that you can do, and then you know, like what would you kind of, for someone that has struggled with long COVID, like would that be something
I think long COVID is you know,
I don't even like to use that term.
No, you can. I mean, it's a post-viral syndrome, right? And a lot of symptoms are chronic fatigue. Because there's the mitochondria that we talked about, NMN affecting, you know, the mitochondrial dysfunction or failure, these energy powerhouses of the cell, they just don't generate energy as well. For some reason, the
it feels
coronavirus
like you're not actually like your food isn't actually converting to energy, or nutrition. Something's not linking.
Literally, you can do tests of mitochondrial function. They show all the metabolites build up. And I've experienced that myself. So using things that support mitochondrial function comes with hyperbaric oxygen, but you know, creatine, very cheap, very good for the mitochondria, coenzyme Q10, carnitine, D-ribose, taurine, all of these are mitochondrial cofactors. Like to use a car analogy, there's many things that make the car move. And it's the same with the mitochondria. They need the right cofactors in order to get the fats, the protein, and the carbohydrate breakdown products and actually generate energy. So that's what mitochondrial support. And also light therapy, photobiomodulation. I lived under a red light, which really helped me. I bought one, 500 quid, and you know, it might have...
So there's things like the Dermaflex, kind of like those...
LED lights,
I mean, I've got the bigger one because it's penetrating a bit deeper than just trying to stimulate collagen. It's actually going into the mitochondria. Infrared saunas, they have a powerful effect on the mitochondria. So that's one thing. And then you have to look at hyperbaric oxygen therapy has been shown to be anti-inflammatory. We don't quite know how it works. People think it just works in the lung, but you're essentially in a chamber. It was used in diving injuries. You go in a chamber, you have oxygen. You should actually have it through a mask. If you're being sold it with a cannula, it's not as effective. And you're pressurized. And this drives oxygen into the body. And what that can do is sort of set off a chain of events that result in new blood vessel creation, and stimulation of neuronal connections. So I felt like when I did my 20 sessions, it was almost like the light had come back on, like my brain was brighter. I felt less muscle fatigue or joint aches and pain. So inflammatory symptoms essentially went right down. But you know, a lot of people say, they tried it, they felt suffocated, or they didn't do enough, or at the right pressure. And it's expensive, you know, unless it's fun. The MS Society actually do subsidise for long COVID and fatigue based, so they have hyperbaric oxygen available. But it can be. I actually rented one. I went in it 5 days a week when I was sick.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And do you still use it now? Like if you're going through stages, like
absolutely.
You kind of top up?
Yeah, there's one just here on the wellness lab.
Yes, So So you kind of you recommend like the 20 kind of quite close, and then you kind of
up level you get. We know that your stem cell production is increased under hyperbaric oxygen environments too. But now I sort of check in and do it when I can. I think of it like you plugging yourself into a car. That regeneration time of an hour, and I try not to go in there and email and stuff, because I can see it on my Aura ring. Your HRV goes way up if you're in a hyperbaric oxygen as opposed to lying on a bed. And what that's essentially doing, we were talking about regenerative medicine, it's essentially allowing your cells to sort of up level, to regenerate quicker. And this is where longevity is going as well, this whole idea of compressing your sleep environment, your repair environment, so that cellular damage doesn't build up, so that you're effectively repairing consistently on a day-to-day basis. And so we'll probably get to the stage where we have hyperbaric oxygen sleeping environments. There's companies working on that now with tents, etc. Yeah.
And you use LED a lot in your treatments as well, don't you?
Yes, we incorporate it with most of our treatments.
Yeah. Its effect on the skin, the brain, the mitochondria.
Yeah, so general happiness levels as well. I feel
Especially
very happy lying under an LED light, I'd say. But lying on the
this
beach.
time of the year when you don't get a
without
lot
the
of natural
UV.
light.
Yeah, exactly. Without the UV damage and the pigmentation. Were there any other questions?
Sorry, on the LED red light, what level is it that goes into the body rather than just treating the skin if you're looking to buy one?
And there's a couple of companies. I use Red Light Rising. Not affiliated to them. I think it's 680 nanometers. I think off the top of my head, the one.
680.
Yeah. Mito Light. I think there's various different ones available. Yeah. But yeah, they have a panel and just sort of.
Yeah, if you were doing it for
very different things.
I know, but would you use both?
As an ex-biohacking addict, I'd use as many things as you can to sort of up-level my cellular repair. So
yes.
Yeah, if you wake up in the morning.
Red light's good in the morning, but I thought it was something you used more.
Actually, it mimics the effect of sunrise. Red light does. Actually.
Yeah, because I have one of those lights
Yeah.
that is red in the morning.
Yeah.
Sort of energizes you as you wake up naturally. It's lovely.
Yeah. It's good to do that, but also then if we're, in a day like today when there's low blue light, it's good for you to have blue light as well. I mean, they do slightly different things. They hit the back of the retina, do different things. I think light therapy and photobiomodulation, which is essentially the effects of these different wavelengths of light on our biology, is going to be an emerging trend as well. I think office environments are going to be far more aware of the damaging effects of blue light, hospital lights, those kinds of things.
Exactly.
On our on our mood, on our brains, and inflammation.
We all need to be powered up. Was that question at the back there?
What are the supplements and food that you see regularly in your clinic with your patients, that help to improve women hormonal imbalance and also to support longevity?
Off the top of my head, I mean, magnesium is a big one. There's various different types of magnesium. Citrate stimulates the bowel, keeps you nice and regular. Glycinate calms your nervous system, helps sleep. Threonate supports REM sleep, brain repair. So magnesium is a big one. B complex, we all have high energetic demand in our bodies, and there aren't as many B vitamins in our food as there used to. So B complex is another one that's super helpful. And a big missing piece, which is not often talked about, is choline. So choline is, many of us, don't eat eggs, or we don't eat organ meats, certainly like we used to. We don't eat dark meats. Food sources of choline are low. So choline it can really power on women's brains. It also helps produce acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter in the brain that helps mood and memory, which can get a bit dysfunctional with hormones. So choline in the form of either city-choline or CITI choline or alpha-GPC is a really good sort of brain mood stimulant. And if you're talking about hormonal imbalances, you've got to look at things like maca, which is a powder that can boost testosterone and also sort of give you a bit of a zing. And then something called Agnus cactus or Vitex is very good at, what we call an ovarian adaptogen. You might have heard adaptogens in the context of stress, but ovarian adaptogens basically help you actually ovulate. And if you ovulate, you release progesterone. Many of us become progesterone deficient with aging because we have irregular periods, irregular ovulation. If we don't have that nice calming progesterone, we become a bit more moody and irritable. So Vitex can encourage ovulation and progesterone in the second half of the cycle.
I often hear about black cohosh. Is that one that you
Black
wrote?
cohosh is a pro-estrogen supplement which is helpful as you're approaching the menopause, but mostly for hot flashes. Estrogen's far more effective.
Okay.
Bioregeneration.
Plus the supplements that are obviously in your goodie bags. Just saying.
Which is, NMN, and I use a supplement called NAD Regen. I think with NAD is a universal cofactor energy molecule that's used. Basically, we talk about mitochondria. NAD is the output from the mitochondria. So we know that as NAD levels decline with age, stress, infection, so that we know that if you improve NAD levels, you basically become, as you said, more resilient. NMN is one of the precursors to NAD, so it can sort of funnel in and produce NAD. There are cofactors involved in that process, so it's often good to take other supplements or to wean off NMN and go on something else, like niacinamide or NR or some other molecules that are coming out. So yeah, boosting NAD naturally is a good one. I wrote a whole post on this on Instagram, ways to boost NAD naturally, so have a look.
For time reading.
Just a question about the vagus nerve and vagal toning. I was wondering if you've looked into any of those devices like Sensate or Apollo Neuro.
I have an Apollo Neuro in my bag. I didn't want to put it on because it's so ugly. I love it.
Yeah, they work. And do you see a difference in your aura ring?
What I see a difference is I noticed, so Apollo Neuro is a wristband or it looks like a prison tag that you put around your ankle. And when I'm on Zooms or when I'm in meetings or not wearing tights, I put it on and it sends a signal which you control with your app. And it could be focus, it could be energy, it can be calm, and it can be sleep. And what that does, it's created by a neuroscientist called Dr. David Rabb, and it sends a stimulus into your nervous system to augment, to relax. So I'm a big fan. I've used it for many years. It helped me through long COVID anxiety. Sensate I find a bit annoying because it sort of rattles. It's a stone you put on your chest. But I think that wearable technology to soothe our wrought nervous systems is going to be helpful. I've also done direct vagal nerve stimulation with various electric devices. But one of the best ways to stimulate your vagal is gargling, singing, humming, those kinds of things, hugging.
Things. I think that's probably all that we have time for. I'm really sorry. I know there are more questions, but everyone will stay on a little longer, I think, before you have to run off to see Davinia, to answer anything else you might want to know. But just a final thank you from me to our amazing beauty triangle, who have been absolute experts and completely fascinating. So thank you. Thank you to the Lanesborough for hosting us so beautifully as always, and thank you to all of you for coming today. It's such a treat having you as always. We've actually just announced our first ever Beauty Triangle Festival, which takes place in January next year. Well, literally in 2 months now, which is going to be a full day agenda of panel talks, consultations, treatments, biohacking therapies. There's more details in your goodie bags, but we would love to see you there. You can book with our early bird discounted offer for the next few days, I think. So yes, do check that out as well. But thank you for coming tonight and enjoy your evening. Thank you.